I want to start today without fixing anything, without reframing it, without telling you it all happens for a reason. I just want to sit in something that I think a lot of us carry quietly. It's that moment when the dream you were building toward changes direction, or ends, or slips out of your hands in a way that you didn't plan for. And suddenly the question isn't, what's next? It's, who am I now? Because so much of who we thought we were was wrapped up in what we were becoming, the role, the relationship, the career, the version of life that made sense to us. And when that changes, it can feel disorienting, disconcerting. It's not dramatic, it's just quiet, like the ground shifted a few inches and no one else noticed. Maybe you're not chasing the same things you used to. Maybe the old dream doesn't fit anymore. Maybe you're grieving something that didn't fail. It just finished. And that can leave you wondering if you're lost or you're broken, if you're starting over too late. So, this episode isn't about having answers, it's about naming the space between who you were and who you're becoming. Because losing a dream doesn't mean losing yourself, and not knowing who you are right now doesn't mean that you're behind. It just might mean you're in the middle of becoming something more honest. I'm Jeremiah, and this is Your Life Is Not Over. I have been sharing with you some of my story. And so, for me, I had what I thought was my dream job. In many ways, I would love to enter a radio studio and get on and play some tunes and put on a persona and bring people smiles. That's not where I'm at. And I haven't for over 10 years now. But that doesn't mean failure. That doesn't mean that this life now is wrong. It, doesn't mean that who I was then isn't connected to who I am now. It's all connected. My relationship also ended. A marriage that I thought was always going to be there is not there, and hasn't been for 5 years. And who I was 10 years ago is certainly not who I am today. It doesn't mean that radio was a mistake. It doesn't mean my marriage was a mistake. The old me wasn't wrong. It's all a part of becoming. And I think after times when we think or feel like we've failed, after being told it wasn't working, after 3 months on the job in 2015 in Nashville as a director of the radio station, and they let me go after 90 days, it's hard. After internalizing, maybe I'm not cut out for this, it can be hard to trust yourself again. But I'm telling you, you can. I mean, learning to trust myself again was so huge, and continues to be. It's not like I have arrived. I'm not there. very much the theme of this episode today. I feel like I'm very much in the middle of still. It's messy. Life is messy. There's a lot of gray area. It's not always black and white. Um, but there is a point where you can say, I don't fully know who I'm becoming yet, and that doesn't mean that I'm lost. I don't fully know who I'm becoming yet, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that I'm lost. We have the answers within us. We have the answers around us. And we don't have to even know exactly everything right away, right now. Let me talk through the process that I went through in some of these things. I mean, with radio, I mean, it took some time to even it was seeds planted um, of a lot from my wife at the time, but in a good way of I I know how much you love this, but I don't know if you can continue on this path and like have it be providing for us. I'm talking the radio. Um and it did take me really wrestling with that and saying, okay, well, either I leave radio now, find a way to do that, or I find a way to make radio work. I tried to make radio work, took that job in Nashville, and like I said, um, it did not work out. It did not give me the result I was looking for, and I had to just come to terms with that. Like once it was done, it was done. And I'm sure that everybody has their own ways of processing these things. When it came to the conversations that my wife and I had about where our relationship was at and towards the end of 2020, um, that was so hard. But I heard her, and I did have to come to terms with, like, yeah, this is where we're at, and having conversations, continued conversations around it. And, I couldn't force things. You can't force somebody to love you. And then, you step back at that point and, like, this is where I'm at. And I have to, you know, again, it doesn't mean that the whole thing was a waste, because it wasn't. And some of these things, they do heal with time. I even want to touch on the deconstruction of my faith, because that came in pieces and it left in chunks. And then you're asking these same questions. Who am I now? You kind of question everything at that point of, like, how sure am I that I was right? And then you're like, well, yeah, I'm not entirely sure about that. So what about this piece? What about that piece? What about what I think about this or that? And it's, contemplation. It's um, looking at the different aspects of what you've seen work, what you've seen not work, what you want, and how it comes. You come to a point of realizing that these things aren't coming back. You do grieve them, you know? If I could magically, you know, put some of these things that have fallen apart back together, sometimes that would be cool. But also, I would not change who, like, I'm so grateful for those experiences because of who I am now and what I'm figuring out. It all led me to this place. I know that, it's not necessarily a, everything works for good. There's a lot of pain. It's not just magical, like, oh, it's just perfect. All of these horrible things happened. I was talking to a friend from work that has been losing not friends, family members in the past year to gun violence, and just lost a stepbrother last night. I mean, it's hard to really piece together and understand or whatever, like, how to like process things like that and events like that. um I know somebody who lost their child in the past year and now recently lost their husband. These things are so incredibly hard, and there's nothing when we come to these big events in our lives that just, people that we lose, we want them back for sure. And I'm gonna leave, that part of it, I'm gonna let sit. But those other things, the careers that end, the relationships that end, it doesn't mean that it was wrong for me to dream about having a career in radio. I still would encourage people to follow their dreams. It's kind of, I've got that little bit of cynicism, a little bitter taste in my mouth of like, yeah, but it doesn't mean it's gonna last forever. But those seasons are magical and they're life changing, and I wouldn't be who I am without those seasons. The I would certainly do my relationship differently and live my life differently if I knew what I knew now when I first got married. But it doesn't mean that it wasn't worth it. Um, so, in some ways, I think I almost I want to leave that portion of things right there. I thought about ending the episode right there, but I do want to talk a little bit about what I've been doing to answer that question of, so who am I now? And I think that some of the tools that we can use, getting your thoughts out, being open to, meet people that are have had the same experiences you have, or are having them, relationships with people, friendships, conversations, all of these things help us process these things and help us decide, again, like, what do we want? What do we want to go after? What can we learn from others? And what are the things that we want to take with us? And what are the things we want to let go of? And therapy has definitely been a big one as well. Having somebody to be there to listen to you and what you are processing and going through, and be there to ask the right questions. Because I think so much of therapy, it's not about advice you get from your therapist. That's not really their place necessarily. They can help point you in a direction sometimes, but the questions that they ask are more so to help you find within yourself what you want, and help find what works for you in solving those questions, solving those problems, and getting to where you want, for whatever stage you're in, or what difficulties you're going through. And it's certainly a process. It's not all directly clear all at once, and that's okay. Just know that you're becoming, and you're piecing together piece by piece who you want to be, what you want your life to be. And that sounds spectacular. So that's the exciting thing. You get to choose your life. You get to say, what do I want my life to look like? And how do I get there? How do I bring more fun into my life? What are the things that I enjoy? And some of those questions are hard to answer sometimes, for sure, especially when so much has changed. And you just have to try things sometimes, or you only know right now there's this one thing that I like. I'm going to enjoy that, and eventually you can keep exploring and find other things. So before we wrap up, I just want to say this. You don't have to know what comes next yet. If the dream changed, if the plan changed, if the version of you that made sense for a long time doesn't quite fit anymore, that doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're in between. And the in between isn't a problem to solve, it's a place to listen. You don't need to rush into a new identity. You don't need to rename yourself. You don't need to turn this season into a success story yet. Sometimes the most honest thing you can say is, I don't fully know who I'm becoming, and I'm still here. If that's where you are, you're not failing, you're not late, you're not doing this wrong, you're letting something real take shape. And that genuine, unique part of who we each are is so beautiful. If no one's told you lately, your life is not over, I care about you, there's so much left. Thank you for sitting with me today. I'm really glad you're here. You can find me online at instagram.com/your life is not over pod. Instagram. Your Life is Not Over pod. And if you are enjoying these episodes, share it with a friend. That would mean so much to me. I genuinely want you to feel like you're not alone. Because I genuinely don't feel like I have it all figured out. But I definitely know that my life is not over. And I know I'm not alone. And I know I'm becoming. Have a great day.